Hello, this is Pratham Mingale, and we are doing a video testing this breadboard. This is me, you can confirm. Here's a photo of the breadboard and the circuit and the connections to the MyDeck. Here's some notes for explaining what's happening. So, these are the various inputs. We have A, B, and C, and then D. A represents if the store is in hours. If it is 0, then we're in hours. If it's 1, then we're out of hours. These both represent receptionists. If they are 0, no one's seated. And if they are 1, then someone is seated. So in this situation, we can see no one is seated. Even though it's in hours, since no one is seated, it is locked. Now if we turn to 1, it makes no difference. It's after hours and no one is seated, meaning this should be locked. Makes sense. Now, if we're in hours and one person is seated, let's say Barbara is seated here, then we can see it turns off. The doors are now unlocked. Same thing with if Chuck is seated, it turns off. The doors are now unlocked. If, let's say either of them, let's say Chuck, let's start with Chuck. If Chuck is seated, but we're after hours, the door is locked because, well, we're after hours. If, same thing, we can check with Barbara. Even if Barbara is seated, if we're after hours, it will be locked. Then, if we're in hours and both of them are seated, it'll be unlocked because that's the same as if one of them was seated. The doors are unlocked. If we're after hours and both of them are seated, it is still locked because we are after hours. And I think that's every case. Once again, if neither of them are seated and we're after hours, it'll lock. If we're in hours but no one's seated, it'll still lock. And if one of them sits, it unlocks. And if one of them is sitting and it's after hours, it'll be locked.